Hey everybody, it's Doug Schauf with Remax Oceanside of MakeMaineYourHome.com. In this week's episode, we are going to talk about cost of living in Portland, Maine. I get this question a lot, like, hey, I hear it's expensive there, blah, 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 whatever. So I thought I would dive into a few data points to show you the cost of living in Portland, Maine. So let's do this. All right, everybody, we're going to jump right in to talk about the cost of living here in Portland, Maine. Some of this stuff I thought was kind of interesting. We did some research on, what to look at when we're talking about the cost of living. We found a cost of living index, which takes into account, groceries, health, housing, your income, utilities, transportation, and things like that. So, kind of gives us a cost index to look at. And then also we looked at like what the rents are like here in Portland compared to Maine and then also the rest of the country, so we get a good overview of that. And then of course, if you're looking to buy a house, like what are the costs of housing here versus some other places, and we can talk about all those things. So let's jump right in. First thing I'm going to talk about is a cost of living index that we looked up. A lot of this data came from a couple places. I'll give a shout out to, it's bestplaces.net is where we pulled a lot of this cost of living index. So how they did this, I'm sure they looked at ratios and numbers and they kind of put all this data in together. And like the median that they're looking at is 100. So if any of these numbers are above 100, we are above that average cost of living. If it's below, of course, we're below the average cost of living. This was interesting. So overall, Portland, Maine came in at 108. So we're a little bit above, USA, the average, cost of living. And that's overall. When we break it down here, we're looking at grocery. How much are groceries? So in Portland groceries are 111. So we're quite a bit higher than the average United States. Maine in general is 107, a little bit lower than Portland, of course, but still overall groceries are more expensive here. Health in Portland, Maine is 94.8, so below the average, which I'm not really sure why that would happen. My guess is maybe because there's a couple of great hospitals here and maybe it kind of keeps the costs down that way. Maine as a whole is 100.1, so right around the USA average for health. Housing, okay, so this is where it gets kind of expensive, to be honest with you. Housing, Portland is 133, so well above the average there regarding housing. And you can tell like rents are going way up and housing prices are going way up. So here in the Portland area. Now, the state of Maine is at 99.2, so right around that average. Really, it's kind of like this Portland and really a lot of southern Maine. I bet you if you broke it down that way, it would be there. Housing is really, can be expensive. Depends. It's really hyper local, so it depends on the neighborhood and things like that. You can still find some really good affordable housing in Portland. Median home costs, nationwide median home price is $231,000. The state of Maine is $229,000, so a little bit below average. But Portland is $309, so way above the national average and the Maine average. So again, Portland housing is up there, and that does contribute to that higher overall rating. Utilities, Portland is 102, and the state of Maine is 102.7 is Portland. So a little bit above, the national average, but not outrageous, but still, so utilities can be a little bit higher. My guess is that's probably because we're heating oil. A lot of areas in the country have natural gas, which probably brings it down and things like that. So anyway, transportation, wow, our transportation costs are very low. So 76.4 is Portland. We got some pretty good public transportation, and the state of Maine is 79.2. So anyway, overall, 108.2, and a lot of the reason that Portland is higher than the national average is because of housing, is what I'm looking at. Housing and groceries. Those are the things that would be pushing it up into that higher level. The next thing we looked at is we found some pretty interesting data on rent prices. I'm looking at rent prices for Portland, the state of Maine, and then, nationally, the average, just kind of like the cost, the index that we just looked at. So a studio apartment here in Portland, Maine rents for, on average, $964 a month. The average in Maine is $754, and in the US, an average studio is $821. So again, housing prices are going up there. Let's look at, though, I'm going to look at like a 3-bedroom, maybe a normal family, or maybe somebody would be renting, maybe have some roommates, things like that. So in Portland, a 3-bedroom is going for $1,784 per month. The national average is $1,537, and in Maine, the average is $1,309. So again, you can see Portland housing is really what drives up the cost of living there. Income. Salary here in the state of Maine. So the average salary in Portland, Maine is $62,000 a year. Trends in wages increased by 0.3% in the fourth quarter of 2020, rising a little bit, but $62,000 per year is the average income in Portland, Maine. Some of probably the most popular employers here in Portland is Maine Health, Maine Medical Center, which is one of the hospitals. There's also Mercy Hospital. Give a shout out to them since they helped with the birth of my 3 children. And then IDEX Laboratories is another big employer here in the area. Unum is also a big insurance company that does that. And some of the data that we looked at, like Maine Health, they got, average incomes between $45,000 and $109,000. Maine Medical Center is $45,000 to $135,000. IDEX is $47,000 to $115,000. Unum is listed here, $41,000 to $85,000. Oh, Tyler Technologies is another great company in Falmouth that has an income of $45,000 to $88,000. Those are averages, of course. That's what's going on with the salary here. I won't dive in too much on housing prices. Right now, housing is doing extremely well in the Portland, Maine market. Historically, housing prices are fairly average to the national average, but as of right now, prices are going up considerably in Portland, so that's, is pushing up the cost of living. There's a lot of other videos that I've done regarding prices and market updates and things like that regarding the Portland area. I guess one other thing that I will touch on the economy. So the unemployment rate in Portland is 1.9%. Wicked low. The U.S. average is 3.7. That'll kind of give you an idea of what's been happening here in Portland. 1.9% unemployment rate, and the average in America is 3.7. Of course, all that fluctuates, so it depends on when you're watching this and all that. I will say, as of right now, the unemployment rate is very low. It's hard to find labor in a lot of industries, and it's really quite a struggle. As we'll see, we'll probably start increasing salaries and things like that because a lot of employers just need people, and in a lot of industries, they're just willing to pay it. A lot of sign-on bonuses, things like that. Transportation. Average commute is 19.1 minutes. The national average is 26.4 minutes. So, hey, that's pretty good. We got an easy commute. And as I've touched on in previous videos, we got very little traffic here and nobody honks at you. Hopefully that was helpful. Overall, looking at the cost index, Portland, Maine is a little bit higher than the U.S. average, but depending on how you live and where you live, you might be able to get your housing costs down if you maybe live outside of the Portland area to get your housing cost and commute in or something like that. There's ways to do that because there are some great things here that keeps your costs down, like transportation and health and other things like that that can be less expensive than the U.S. average. Anyway, hopefully this was helpful. If you have anything to add, put a comment below. Send me an email. Hit me up on all the social media, Instagram, Facebook, things like that. And remember, if you make Maine your home, you don't have to do it alone.
It's really good. I'm very glad I took the